I'd like to call this meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. Mrs. Harlow, if you'd please call the roll.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal is absent. And Mr. Unger?
Here. With two of us here, we can proceed with the meeting, and I'll go to Mr. Mills for the next item.
The next item on the agenda is an executive session, but at this moment we do not have a need for executive session. We'll hold one at a special meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m., but for right now we don't need the executive session. Right, and that's been rescheduled for tomorrow evening because Mr. Rajagopal could not be here this meeting due to a personal reason. That's right. He's at a funeral. So I would ask that we recess until the regular meeting starts at 7 o'clock. Yes, sir.
And I'll make that motion.
And I'll second. Is there any discussion?
Not for mine.
Heather, please call
Mr.
vote.
Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal and Mr. Unger?
Aye. So this board is recessed until 7 p.m. It's 7 o'clock, and it's time for the Colerain Township Board of Trustees meeting. Mrs. Harlow, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal is absent. Mr. Unger?
Here. I'd ask that you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I ask that you remain standing for a moment of meditation and reflection, and as our country reaches its 242nd birthday next week. How lucky we are to live in such a God-blessed nation.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is Are you up next, Heather?
For the minutes from the June 12th meeting with Mr. Rajagopal not here, we'll approve those at the next meeting, if that's all right with you guys.
Okay. And the next item is citizens' address concerning today's agenda. And then if you have an agenda item, that would be a good time to speak. I have 6 forms filled out. And then if you have some new business items, that'll be after the speaking about today's items. And if I start at the bottom, that was probably the first one here. Was that you, Rich?
Appreciate it. I
have
have
several. McVeigh.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Is everybody here okay? Thank you.
I have several questions tonight of the trustees about the Duke project. A little over 6 months ago, there was an article in the paper from Mr. Mills, which said this project was estimated to be about $16 million. And now we're being told it's around 10. Do you guys know what's changed?
I'm gonna defer to Jeff to answer that question.
That was the conservative estimate that I used to base all of our calculations on.
So now are we firm on the 10 million? Do we have, drawings and all that kind of stuff? Because there are going to be investment decisions potentially based on the amount of money here. I know the school district will be thinking about that. I mean, are we firm that it's a $10 million job? You guys know?
I'm going to defer to Jeff.
Yes.
You firm? Jeff, you say it is 10?
Yes.
Do you have drawings and layouts and all this kind of stuff?
I think those would belong to Duke.
Yeah, so the site isn't assembled yet, and so until we know what the site is going to be, there can't be drawings drawn up. So hopefully after tonight, we'll have a much clearer idea of what the Duke site will be, and they'll be able to make the investment in architectural drawings and civil engineering drawings.
So we got no renderings or layout or anything. I mean, preliminary. I understand that the only thing that's been, I guess, up in the air is the spot around where the Firestone Motel is and maybe the police annex, but the rest of the stuff they knew about, I guess, didn't they, Jeff? So do you have some preliminary drawings you've looked at? None?
Jeff,
you haven't looked at anything?
I'm aware that the building's supposed to be on the front of the property and some other things. There's no stamped engineered drawings that I'm aware of yet.
It's important to get that nailed down. Jeff also says that it's going to cost about $100,000 to demolish this building. Talking to a couple people, that seems a bit high. Do you have 3 bids on this thing?
I thought the reasoning was asbestos, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I don't think that, I hope it doesn't cost $100,000, but if you hit asbestos, the cost can go up, and so I'm asking for approval to spend up to $100,000. And of course, if it's less than that, then it's less than that, and that's great.
Do we have any bids?
No, because we haven't approved the purchase and sale and
We
demolition.
haven't awarded the demolition
Right,
yet.
so we wouldn't get bids on a
So
project.
awarding the
that-
demolition is one thing, but we're at the beginning of the project, and, you know, if it's 50,000, it's different than if it's 100,000. I understand things can change, but the project's been going on for some period of time, and I would have hoped that we would
I
have
think
some
that's,
bids.
based on my knowledge of demolitions, I think that's a reasonable budgetary estimate.
So I just asked that you guys
Property.
get about 3 estimates, just to be in good business.
Just 3?
Couple anyhow.
We'll get 4 for fun.
Couple
how's
any. You intend to describe this as a TIF district. Do you know what the boundaries are? Do the trustees know what the boundaries are? I'm asking the trustees questions.
Well,
Do you
there-
guys-
there is-
I can't tell you how many feet it goes back off the road or the width of the property.
Is it just the Duke property, or
It's
is it
just,
all-
it's just the Duke property, and that would depend on if the other parcels get wrapped
That
into it.
you're talking about
We should-
tonight?
Yeah,
Okay, so
we
it would
should
be-
know that.
Is that right?
There is no TIF district yet, and hopefully the project does include a TIF district, but that point in time when a TIF district would be established is way down the road. So it's after the demolition of
I'm
the
just
existing
referring to
property, and
what-
that's about the
Right.
time that we would put a TIF district on.
So the intent is to have a TIF district if you get this thing approved?
We'll bring that to the board, but yes, that would be the
'Cause I
smart
was just
thing.
reading
That would be
your
the
note.
smart thing for the township to
reading your
do.
note.
Yeah.
So we're not sure what the boundaries are of the TIF districts because we haven't decided yet to spend the money to shut.
In my mind, Rich, it is the Duke facility and nothing
All right.
beyond the Duke
I'm
facility.
not trying to work it, just that we need to know what they are.
Sure.
Now, it says it's a TIF district. Do you have a plan for the use of the funds? You're supposed to have a plan for the use of the funds.
We're not establishing a TIF district tonight, and like I said, the time to establish a TIF district is well down the road.
If we make this decision, or the board makes this decision to move forward with your recommendation, which I support, I'm not trying to draw that, you're going to have a TIF district. And you're going to have to know, you're not going to be able to turn back. So I'm saying, here we are at the beginning of this project. We've had 20-some months to look at it. Do you know what you're going to do with the money? Because it's up to,
Well, it would go to mitigate the cost of the demolition first, and then whatever else.
Well,
Wherever else the
so I
funds
think that
went.
that revenue would offset the money that's being spent on the acquisition and demolition of the fireside. But the state statute is pretty clear about what
think so,
TIF
right.
districts can be used for, and so my recommendation would be to allow the township to use that money and those revenues for all the things that a state statute allows.
so it can be used outside the district, I think, as I understand the statute. I mean, Larry's shaking his head. But you don't have a plan. So, I mean, that's,
Not at this time.
don't have
I
a plan.
guess
So,
not.
and it's up to $3 million that we're talking about, if the preliminary estimates are true that you're talking about for the township.
I believe over 30 years, yeah.
Yeah, right, so that's what, now, we're going to spend $100,000 less, hopefully demolish this thing.
Hopefully.
And we're giving them the land value of the police annex, okay, which I don't have any problem with, because we are not really using the building. But what are you guys getting for these things that you're giving Duke?
I'm not getting anything personally. You mean the township?
Excuse me, I didn't mean to imply.
Well, we're going to have a well-established, well-known corporation there, and what I look to see in the next 5 years from when this project gets off the ground, that whole section of Colerain Avenue from Galbraith down to the city limits, I see a lot of people making a nice salary working for Duke. I see businesses coming up. I see another restaurant or two. I see stores. I see people going in and out that work for Duke that are making, $50,000, $75,000 to $80,000 a year. I welcome having those jobs in our community, and I think it's going to really help to develop that part of Colerain Avenue. I bought kitchen cabinets there in 1992.
So did I.
And the Western Home Center is not around anymore, and I just think it's going to be a huge economic win for the township to have that business there.
So any business of that size that comes in and we do it right, there are benefits with it. So I understand that, and I would share your vision around, hopefully it will attract the right kind of business. Which brings me right to my next point. I mean, the amount of tax revenue we're getting from this thing, while it's welcome, it's not really that significant we spend over $30 million a year, and this thing might give us another 100,000. So, And we need it. I'm not trying to say we don't need it. But the biggest impact that this thing is going to have is, what is the long-lasting impact?
Just the economic development of that area.
Right, that whole area. I mean, the imprint that you're going to leave is not that you got rid of the Fireside Motel. People forget about that, although it's a good thing to do. What they're going to look at is what you guys agree to leave in that place and how it's going to set the tone, okay, to help attract the right kind of businesses, in the area and companies or professional services, okay. You see what's going on in Green Township with all the medical development kind of things. Hopefully, you'll work with Duke, all right.
I imagine Duke has some vendors that they might encourage to move nearby so that they can service that business.
So at this point in time, when you have some leverage in working with Duke, still left, I think, being a negotiator, you have some leverage. Do you have any agreements around what the street appearance of this project is going to look like?
Just that the building's going to be on the front of the lot, and then whatever else Jeff knows about it.
So we have a zoning resolution that has architectural standards, and every business that wants to build something has to abide by those architectural standards. But as I mentioned before,
so we aren't that far along yet.
They don't have the site yet. So.
I did Google some Duke operation centers across the country, okay, just to see what they look like. And some of them look okay, and some of them look pretty awful based on how they're storing equipment, okay? And do you guys know what's going to be in there? Are we going to have these transformers and 40-foot telephone poles and lots of trucks? Have any idea what's going to be back there?
I've been out to their facility on Kemper Road, and it's a lay-down facility, and they have a lot of poles out there. I've been to their gas facility on Cardiff in Oakley, and it's a very old building that started out as Central Union Heat and Light and became Cincinnati Gas and Electric. And I look at this, it's going to be all brand new and up to the latest building codes, and I think it's going to be a nice-looking site.
So, great. What I'd encourage you to do is to look down to Clippard, okay, and say to Duke, we want something that looks as good or better than Clippard when you guys get done, okay? The right kind of architectural treatment in the front, the right kind of landscaping, all that kind of stuff, and push them as part of this deal to commit to doing something like that as soon as you can up front. That's my encouragement, because I think that kind of setting is what's going to help us attract the kind of businesses that you're talking about, so we don't get a bunch of small businesses coming in that won't have the same impact. I think as well, I hope you ensure that it has the right amount of buffering, for the residents that are on the backside. And I know that we got codes, so I'm not trying to say that, but we need to take a strong look at that we don't have noise pollution, we don't have light pollution, there's a creek in the back, there's a bunch of stuff that we need to say with Duke, we expect you to do this right. I mean, if this facility was in Indian Hill, or if it was in Wyoming, what would they expect? And if they expect it, we ought to expect it. And the only way that's going to happen is by you guys having the right kind of conversation with them around how important this is to do exactly what you want to have it do, Dan, to set the right tone, okay? The other thing is, do you have any agreements from Duke or the state of Ohio around what they're going to do to try to deal with the traffic issues?
So there was a traffic study that was done to see if a traffic light was warranted at Harry Lee and Colerain, and as of right now, the traffic volume doesn't warrant a traffic light there.
How many trucks do they have going in there? Do you have any idea? Is it 50, 75?
I don't know off the top of my head, but that was taken into consideration in the warrant study.
In the study?
That's not to say that in the future traffic volumes don't change and they're able to look at it again.
I just say from the get-go, I hope you guys would be on this thing, like white on rice, to make sure that we have the right stuff, because we have enough issues on Colerain.
And one thing we don't have is traffic counts from the old Builders First Source or Western Home Center, because there wasn't a light there then either. But I mean, it's not a retail business. It would just be trucks coming in and out and employees coming in and parking, I would guess.
And give me the number on employees again. 150,
150 is what I'm told.
so you can assume 150 cars.
The other thing, just two other small points here. One, there are some people who are working out of the police annex, and the note to you said that we're going to look to see if those people can fit in some other housing or location. Do you have any idea what that's going to cost you to do that?
I do not.
I'm going to defer to Jeff.
Last question here. There are reports that 150 people are going to be working out of this place. Do you have any data from Duke or anyone else that will shed light on what the impact that's going to be on the revenues that come into the township? Any data?
I would take their, I know what my percentage of my personal income is that I spend on shopping or restaurants or whatever. I would guess some portion of those salaries, if everybody's making $70,000, that'd be.
If they lived here or something, but so, you don't have any data.
Well, we do. We do have so our revenues are derived mostly from property tax,
Right.
as you know, right? And so the great thing about economic development, one of the great things is that as people invest money in Colerain in their property, then that increases the total valuation of the township, which hopefully over time helps to limit the levies that are needed. So you can either raise taxes or you can raise property values in order to get more revenue. And so what we're trying really
I
hard to
agree with
do
that.
is get our
understand.
property values higher.
So the specific issue here is the claim is 150 people, okay, will have a positive impact on the township. And I'm just saying, do you guys have any data to support? We don't have an income tax.
I don't have a spreadsheet on it or anything. I know where I work at during the day, our small business, we patronize the small businesses around us, and I kind of know what we're spending there on that small level. I don't exactly know what Duke's going to spend, if they'll have trucks that run on natural gas, or if they'll start buying fuel locally, if they'll start buying whatever parts they need. I know there's quite an assembly of auto parts stores and other vendors along there.
So what we know, and we've talked about tonight, and what we don't know, and that's a good thing. I mean, we know some things.
I appreciate you bringing all those things to our attention.
We don't know some things, so I think it behooves us to kind of drive that, and to you guys to drive that to the bottom line, and is getting that stuff pinned down sooner rather than later. I think is good for us. Okay, it's good for us, and I think that it's good for you to have the conversations with Duke early to lock these things down, okay? And once you commit yourself to this demolition and this project, you've lost some of your leverage around that negotiations. That's my point. So we just want to do this right, okay? We want to have the long-lasting impact so that it attracts other business. We don't want a cinder block building up there with a cyclone fence where you can see buckets, trucks in the back, and that kind of stuff. That's not going to help us. So that's my point. And if you guys would take that to heart, and
Sure.
as you words,
And
I
I
appreciate it. Thank you.
I would just like to comment that, and one thing I've mentioned at a few other meetings is as trustees, we communicate with Jeff individually. We don't meet. I don't talk to Greg except at the meetings. I don't talk to Raj except at the meetings. So sometimes if we're sitting up here, like, did you ever think about that, Greg? Well, we've never had a chance to.
Yeah, we don't get to talk.
We don't have clandestine meetings or anything. So this is the first time we've had a chance to consider some of that. Thank you, Rich. Mike Parsons.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm coming in here just short on information on the deal, but just with an ear to the ground, it sounds like there's a fast gallop to get across an indeterminable finish line here. Can I ask one question?
Go for it.
What's tomorrow's deadline that we got to have a resolution here this evening?
I think we're just trying to keep the process moving along. I think Jeff detailed in the agenda that he's been working on this for 21 months. The thing we're doing tomorrow, for those who were here, we didn't have our executive session this evening. That's an entirely different topic, and Raj couldn't be here, and we didn't want to have that meeting without him. He's at a funeral this evening.
Well,
As far as a
you know,
deadline, this is just another step moving the project along. Some of our second Tuesday meetings have gone on till 11 or midnight,
I
and
understand.
I'm glad we're building in an hour or two to discuss this tonight, so that
what's to be decided on here tonight? That we're going to actually grant the, we're going to go ahead with this real estate transfer? That we're going to kick this to the CIC and get this ball rolling on that? Is that what's going on?
I think that's the direction we're.
Yeah, so there's three items that relate to the Duke project tonight. So the first is a loan agreement. The second is the transfer of the CRC building, the Community Resource Center, and then the third is authorizing the execution of a purchase, sale, and demolition agreement. So that's what's going on tonight.
Where does the Fireside owners enter into this?
What do you mean?
Well, we got to procure the property from the owners of the Fireside Motel. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, and I'll explain that whole process here in a little bit.
Who owns the Fireside?
Fireside LLC.
And who's the LLC?
Right. It's
It's an unrelated a person that's not related to anybody in this township. I mean, as far as anybody in local government.
But she is the owner. I don't know. I'm not sure I don't know her name off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I would think that it would be sort of.
Are you one of the owners? Is that what you're telling us?
Well, I thought that'd be kind of crucial to any real estate transaction is who really owns it. Underneath all the layers of hobnob, there is a true owner. So do they have an interest in what's going on here?
But so she is willingly entering into it. So I was gonna go over all that.
We already have a rapport with her.
Mike, would you like to hear what the answer to your question?
Okay.
Okay. So the way that this is going to work is Duke has a company called the Tri-State Improvement Corporation that's going to enter into an agreement with the owner of the Fireside, right? And then they're going to assign that contract to the CIC. And so the reason that I can't tell you her name and the reason I haven't interacted with you is because I haven't been a part of that transaction.
Clear me up on this. Why would a Duke a subsidiary or affiliate, entering into a contract with a property owner, have to involve a third-party township to transact that? I'm vague on that.
Okay. So the purpose of it is so that we can subsidize the acquisition of the property. So in a perfect world, Duke would just purchase it and demolish it on their own, but they didn't want to do that at first, right? So they purchased the Builders First Source site and were ready to move forward with a project on the Builders First Source site. And in an effort to revitalize Grospec, I've worked for about 21 months to convince them to spend $400,000 additional dollars on the purchase of the Fireside. And so that is why we are involved, is we are subsidizing the acquisition to the tune of $30,000, and then we are demolishing the CRC and the Fireside, and we are donating the CRC property. So that is what the township is doing in order to clean up Grospec, and we think that's important.
Am I correct in what you said, that the Duke subsidiary is contributing $400,000 to the purchase of the Fireside?
Yes, sir.
And we're kicking in 30.
Yes, sir.
What's the need for our 30? I mean, if you go rolling a $400,000 purchase price, why do we have to involve our money in it?
Because we want it done. And the deal, and that was a great, because
I think that's how far apart we were at the end of the negotiation.
Yeah, so I've been negotiating. It started with 0, right? And so through my negotiations, we got up to 400,000, and that was as high as they were willing to go. Yeah. And so that only left.
What's the property appraised at?
I don't know. What's the auditor value on that?
Well, I mean, that's all relevant, up or down.
Somebody will give you,
In real estate transactions, exactly right. Real estate transactions, a piece of property is worth what somebody is willing to give you, and what a buyer and seller are willing to agree on. Okay. And so,
well, what's the relative real estate in the area?
I believe that purchase price, the price of the property is $430,000.
And that said, that property's been sitting vacant for 10 years, and
what, the Fireside?
No, the Duke, the Builders First Source property.
Yeah, pardon me, but I hear a lot of ambiguity in here and a lot of vagueness. It sounds like Duke don't want anything to do with it. You strong-armed them into going ahead and buying it out, which is fine. I can appreciate that.
It'll help their site also. They won't have an old.
Yeah, you want to build a multi-million-dollar.
It sounds like they're really disinterested.
No, they're very interested, and in fact, when they heard that they could become a part of revitalizing a community that needs investment, they were really willing to step up, and I applaud their efforts. And I think that
that all sounds good. I don't know. There's something shadowy here. It just doesn't feel good. We're hurrying it down the line, and I don't know, and I hate to get over here on Mr. Barbier again, but are you an affiliated attorney with the CIC?
Shouldn't questions be directed to the board?
Yeah. Are you an affiliated attorney with CIC?
Yes, he represents us.
Yes.
So you're actually the attorney of note in the whole transaction?
What does attorney of note mean?
Well, the one collecting the money.
I'm not collecting any money. I've reviewed the documents.
Okay, well, that's another whole story.
I'm confident in what I have seen and what's been presented to us, and knowing that we don't get to talk to each other except at these meetings. Jeff has explained this to me a couple times, and I'm confident that when we get through this process, we're going to have a very nice situation there a few years from now.
Yeah, and no one can speak for him. I guess he's at a funeral, There, no reason all this couldn't be put on hold. Do we have a full board, get his input?
Well, the funeral that he's at came up kind of suddenly over the weekend, and there is part of the, as I explained before, the executive session was moved to tomorrow night because he wanted to be a part of that. We have people lined up to be here, and we could certainly have canceled the meeting, and then something else could have came up, and we could have canceled it. We're trying to stick to our advertised schedule of meetings, which is...
Did Raj express any interest in canceling the meeting, Jeff, when you spoke to him?
He just asked me to reschedule the executive session.
So he was fine with this, obviously?
Yes.
All right. Fair enough.
Well, I'm not going to beat it up, but personally, I don't know that I'm a ball of fire about it. Here we're involving ourselves in a private real estate transaction, with just an anonymous, and I guess it's for the betterment of the township. I mean, can't you do anything about that behemoth across the street?
Oh, so trust me, it's if I. Okay, so
twist their arm to go
yeah.
like that. I mean,
Here's
going to have executives flying in and out for this
Here's-
five-star facility.
here's what
We
it-
need to put 'em up.
Here's what it comes down to on in-town suites. That's what you're referring to, right? It's worth a lot more money. Believe me, if we could bulldoze that for $30,000, I think some of us put it out of our own pocket. I mean, the reality is, we have these hotels have put a huge drain on our police, fire, and EMS services. In my own opinion, they're going to pay for themselves in no time, just off that alone, not to mention perception and everything else. When Green Township did that, if you recall, they had a lot of hotel issues similar to like what we're having.
74 Motel, it was called.
74. Well, they had I think 2 or 3 of them as well. And when they got rid of those, wow! I mean, what a huge! I mean, you can ask them; they'll tell you all day long. That was one of the best decisions they ever made. And I am of the impression that if I can get one other vote, I would like to proceed with getting rid of some of ours as well. Interestingly enough, I challenged Jeff before he was our administrator on trying to get the most respectable hotel possible here in Motel, right? And recently, with Toys R Us going out of business, I thought, oh man, that's a prime location for a nice, Holiday Inn Express or just something that there's a 10-mile gap between Forest Park and Western Hills without anything, and anytime I have to fly somebody in from out of town for, business at the studio or something else going on around the township, it's embarrassing to not be able to, send them here, and I hate to say that. I'm not trying to, speak ill of our hotels and motels here, but the reality is they've not always been the best partners. I don't know how to say that nicely. And I will say this about In-Town Suites, though, to their credit, they did fly out executives here. This is when we had Administrator Malloy, and we challenged them to do something, do anything, for goodness sakes. And they raised their weekly rents up, which, theoretically, the higher you charge, less, riffraff, whatever you want to call it, you're going to get in there. They remodeled a lot of the rooms, nicer clientele, want nicer rooms, common sense, right? And I think the thing that they did that was best there, that's helped cut down on, I'm sure it's cut down, I don't have Chief Denny here to give me specifics, but to cut down on call volumes, is they have a security guard there. If you drive past there, I don't know at what time they start doing it, but you'll see a security guard with his cones in his vehicle, clearly marked, and they don't let anybody in and out of there unless they're a guest. Now, obviously, if you're bad and you're trying to do harm, you'll find a way around that. But the reality is, In-Town has been a better partner, and I appreciate that. So, who knows? I mean, if you look at, I don't know if you've ever been to any In-Town Suites in other communities. Fairfield, for example, I think is the closest one. It's a nice In-Town Suites. It's nice. And the reality is, when you have businesses like Duke, that bringing the level of other businesses around it, maybe In-Town can be what we all wanted it to be when it was first built. Obviously, that's way before my time. But that's going in the right direction, and this fireside thing is positively going in the right direction. And it's just, I can't wait to see what the future holds. For me, this is incredibly exciting. This is something I was on a warpath for, with our old administration, to do something about these, for lack of a better term, seedy hotels. Because the reality is we had a lot of problems coming out of there. I cannot wait for the day when they're gone and we don't have another headline story, stabbing, shooting. What was the most recent one? Shot in the leg. I mean, like, the stuff that comes out of these places are not consistent with my vision for our community. And the quicker we get rid of the problems, the better off we'll be. So I'm excited. I'm truly excited. And to come out of this at $30,000, I mean, holy moly, that is an absolute win times 1,000. And if we could do that with some of the other ones in this community, I would be highly in favor of that if it could be done. But it's all negotiating, and that's the other thing, and I'll just cross this bridge briefly while we're here. When our administration is negotiating contracts and bids and buyers and TIFs and all this fun stuff, there's a lot of stuff that you have to keep close to your chest. I mean, believe me, when Jeff comes to me and he's got something and it's like, oh man, I can't wait to tell the public, and it's like, well, hold on, we can't just, negotiating can be a fickle thing if you're not careful. You just have to be careful, when you're negotiating. And believe me, for 21 months, we had a lot of updates that I couldn't wait to share with the public that I really wanted to, but it could have potentially hurt the negotiating, because the reality is when we're negotiating, if one of these other entities finds out how bad we want something, or that it's maybe worth more to us than what they originally thought. If you're selling your house, you don't want the buyer to know your bottom dollar, right? That's just common sense. So anytime you're negotiating, you kind of have to hold it tight to your chest. And, I saw some things online, that people were suggesting there was a lack of transparency, and there wasn't. There really wasn't. There's just certain things you just can't release, whether it's a criminal investigation or a hotel contract or whatever it is. There's just certain things that you have to be patient with. So I appreciate our residents' patience, because I had to have a lot of patience myself, because it's been a long time coming, and I couldn't be more excited. So sorry for being long-winded there. Where are we at on your question? Sorry.
No, you're good. Well, I'll tell you what, I've heard similar opinions like that, and it all carries a lot of weight. So you're elected up there to do what's best for the township, and you all present your views as being reasonable. Again, from my perspective, I don't ever see any need to hurry. Put it off another week, set the full board up there. We could have listened to Mr. Rajgopal's input on it. That have made me feel a lot better.
Yeah,
I hear the deal's been in the works 20 months. Well, that's been long before the new board here. There's been a lot of stuff in the works. I'm still looking over my back. So, pardon me if I'm just a little suspect. And,
I don't blame
special meetings going down. Hold on a minute. I thought we were beyond that. But
This is a regularly scheduled meeting.
It's a formality, If at any point, if I would have heard from the grapevine or from our administrator or anyone that Raj was like, no, we're not having this meeting, because I would have been like, that's fine, we'll reschedule it. Dan, is it safe to say you wouldn't have a problem if Raj didn't want us to do this?
Well, it sounds like.
And we have our meetings at 7 o'clock, and this was out on the agenda. When did you have it out? Friday?
Yes.
Yeah, we've, some of the things that have changed in the last 6 months, Mike, is everything people were asking for. Get the agenda out Friday. That's why we have people here that are interested in this.
Set our meetings
This
at
isn't
7.
agenda comes out at noon.
Yeah.
Call in by 3 if you want to speak, and then see if you're allowed to speak the next night. That's all way back. That's from the Wayback Machine.
Amen.
I joined Greg and Raj and just saying, I think this is going to be really great. And
I'm excited.
Thanks for your. You have to have confidence in somebody to handle it. And we've gone down the Jeff Mills road, and I'm thinking Jeff's going to get all this done. And at this point in time, he needs these things done that are on tonight's agenda. So have at it, brother, and to get it done. So.
Well, I'm optimistic. I don't want to hear down the line that somebody's got their hand in it. But
I don't.
Oh,
I
God,
can
don't
assure
go
you,
there.
I have no hand in anything. So, okay, thanks, Mike. Keith Miller.
How you doing,
Keith?
Keith? Jinx.
I've listened about, I worry about, the TIF. I told in the last administration, listened to the TIF by Mr. Mills there, and I listened to his 17 minutes and basically got repeated 3 times. And then I listened to what a TIF was. TIF was designed for low-income businesses to get started, not Rumpke's billion-dollar business or any other multi-billion-dollar business. Don't need my money. I'm just, our money needs to be spent here, not on somebody's going to come here and get a TIF, and when their TIF's up, they're going to leave. I got a couple of, speaking of stuff here, but I just want you guys get on, you look up what a TIF is, because it took 2 minutes to explain the TIF to me. It took 17 minutes to listen to Mr. Mills, but it only took 2 minutes to listen to what a TIF was really designed for. And I want to make sure that's known so it's not misused. It's being misused across America. It's not just here. The wealthy's taking TIFs, and it's not designed for the wealthy. So, that needs to be put to a stop. At least here in this township, I don't want to see my money given to Duke or Rumpke's ever again, especially when you're robbing it from the school. Rumpke robbed the school of his employees.
To be fair, Rumpke's paying the same amount. It wasn't Rumpke that theoretically robbed the school. If we have to go there real quick, that, how do I even explain it? The money that was set aside, the money that Rumpke is paying in taxes, it was hurried up and rushed at a special meeting by the previous board. I voted against it. Neither of these two were here at the time. They pushed that through as quick as they could because there was a law that was going into effect, and they had to. They waited till the absolute last minute. Legally, they were allowed to capture all that money because of an expiring law. I don't know the exact law, but the reality is, legally it was fine. They didn't do anything wrong. Morally and ethically, I thought it was incorrect, and I believe that's kind of why we're engaging with the school to try to make everything right from that deal.
Right.
But Rumpke was not at fault. Rumpke had nothing to do with taking that money. Rumpke paid the same amount regardless. It was the board that decided how it would be divided up, and the board decided they were going to keep it all.
And that said, we have been in a lot of communication with the school district since
lot.
January 1st, and they are aware of what we're doing to the extent I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and they're invited to the table on everything, and that was the one thing I said I would do, is make sure they at least had a seat at the table. In my opinion, I can't go back and change what the previous board did, because I wasn't here till January 1st.
That's
So,
questionable, too. I mean, after Ritt admitted to this whole room, he took money from Rumpke and voted for 3 sweet deals for Rumpke. Don't that make it very much? I think Mike DeWine's office needs to get down here and prosecute Rumpke.
okay, thank you.
And I got an idea, though. We're talking about all this medical stuff and the aging baby boomers. And, public broadcast says your malls are going to be done by 2022. How about a medical mall we could start here or something? Last time I went to my doctor, I felt like he's a medical distributor. Here, go there,
I would love to have a hospital in this community. I would love to.
Medical mall, not really a hospital. You go to your doctor there. You go get your x-rays there. You go to your, your eye doctors. You put them all in there, instead of, I said I went to the doctor. Then he sends me to Mercy to get x-rays. And then he wants to send me to a foot doctor. And I said, this is all in the same bunny. It'd be nice. I could walk instead of driving.
Do you have any ideas for a location in Colerain where you'd like to see that?
The mall.
The mall?
Well, that's up there.
There might be something going on there that
Yeah, well, we
can't
just
talk about either. So,
It's just an idea,
Well, we've got a grant. And Jeff, can you speak to the grant briefly?
is that something we should be talking about?
Or is this?
I'm happy to. I'm really excited about it. We got a grant to explore residential, adding a residential component to the mall. So the idea is, as you said, malls are changing, retail's changing. And one of the ways that some communities have found to revitalize their mall is to put boots on the ground. So have people living closer to the mall, and the mall provides an amenity for the folks that live there. And so we're going to look into it. We got a grant. We're going to see if
If
the
you
market.
go up to Liberty Way up there off 129,
Great
you get
example.
off at 75 North.
That's a great
You
example.
get off that. There's a little town there that's kind of a bunch of residential built around retail.
Yeah. Now this grant, this is mixed use. This could be for commercial as well at the mall, or this is just residential at the mall for that
The
grant?
idea is that there's already commercial there, so by adding residential, you'd make it mixed use.
Gotcha.
And I'm confident Jeff's doing his best to get all this stuff sorted out and going in the same direction. That's why we hired him.
All right, then I thank you. Anything else I got
Thanks.
to say? With
Thank you. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Keith.
it.
Rumpke, and I would like to have Rumpke Business Three Amigos back up here again. I like to see that.
Yeah, I've actually,
Thank you, Keith. Stephanie, right?
I would cordially invite them to our next meeting, obviously. How you doing, Stephanie?
Good evening. I am rather disappointed that a large decision like this, $500,000, being put into our CIC, and not all of our board members are present.
He was okay with that, correct? Okay. As long as, if he had an objection to that, I would have agreed with him. And I believe Dan would have as
I
well.
certainly would have.
Okay, still, I have,
That's fair.
okay.
Understood.
And then the agenda for this meeting that was posted, I think back in January, this is a nuisance and abatement meeting. This is the second time since the 3 new trustees have been in office that the special meetings have been following suit with how our past board members did it. It seems like a lot of
Past were because of deadlines they were trying to hurry up and sneak up on, right? This has nothing to do with that. We aren't on any kind of a deadline. We're not rushing anything through. Like the Rumpke one, for example, that was a special meeting that was called by the previous board because they had an expiring law and they were trying to hurry up and pass it through. We're not hurrying up to pass anything through. We're
I don't
just
think I
moving.
mentioned that. I think I said that this was not just a nuisance and abatement meeting.
Yes. And there's nothing wrong with adding anything to these meetings.
Okay. And as I started to state in the citizens address portion of the meeting this evening, is that this is the second time since the new board has been in place that they have altered the agenda for a nuisance and abatement meeting. And you yourself, Mr. Ensko, just stated a few minutes ago that there is no urgency.
Well, there's no deadline. Their urgency is we want to keep the ball going. But we didn't have to have this meeting tonight because we're going to lose all that money tomorrow or something crazy like that.
Great. Perfect. So my suggestion would be to table this for right now and give perhaps the board, who I've witnessed this evening when residents has addressed their questions to the board, the board then looks at Mr. Mills for the answers. I need to look at my trustees for the answers that I'm asking you. And I don't feel that you all are perhaps up to speed on this large loan of $500,000 to be put forth this evening.
Jeff can articulate it better than I can.
And I would say,
rely on that.
like I said, we don't meet outside of these meetings. I don't call Greg.
So
I don't
did you
call
read the
Raj.
have both of you read the entire agenda?
Of course.
Okay.
Can't say I have it memorized. Forgive me for
Sure,
that.
no problem at all.
15 pages.
The property that we're talking about at 7600 Colerain Avenue, which is the old builder's supply business. Do you know when that was sold last?
I don't have the exact date in front of me, no.
Do you know who it was sold from, who bought it and sold it?
I thought the guy who owned the welding business back there, but it's nobody I know. I'm not related to him.
Didn't imply that.
Okay.
I just thought that might be
I
something.
don't know their name, and I don't know that I'd mention it at this meeting if I did.
Okay. So what I'm saying is there seems to be a lot of unknowns. Were you all aware that the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission had voted against this zoning change for this property that we're talking about this evening?
When was that vote?
That was on December 3rd, 2015.
I was not aware there was a vote
you,
on December
again,
3rd,
weren't-
2015 for this, no.
But that's some research that you might, I would think, would do if you're getting ready to approve something.
I did do research to the point of I did ask Jeff the other day if there was going to be any zoning issues with this.
So you asked the administrator, you didn't do any,
Well, I asked him because he's the one who's been working on
Okay.
it. Jeff, was there going to be any zoning issues with this?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Because I did think they asked that question the
so
other day.
were there zoning issues? Is that what you asked?
I said, will there be any
Okay,
zoning
well, I'm
issues?
asking, were there?
No, not that I'm aware of.
There were.
What was the intended property use on December 3rd, 2015?
Funny you should ask. I can answer that.
Great.
It was to be voted on to be changed from B2, general business, and B7, multifamily residential, to B3, commerce. And at that meeting on December 3rd, 2015, the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission voted 3-2 to deny the request. Just a little background there for you.
And what was the argument for and against?
That is not something I'm privy to. I couldn't find the minutes on the internet, but they voted against
I
it.
could add to this. I was at,
Microphone.
I attended that meeting on December
Pull the
3rd.
mic a little closer to your face.
I
there,
did
Jen.
attend that meeting on December 3rd, 2015, representing the township in that zone change request by the property owner at the time. That board, typically Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission, generally is against single letter zoning. They like to see planned districts generally. The intent of this zone change was to prepare this site, to assemble the site in a single zone classification and prepare it for redevelopment. It is very difficult to sell a property for redevelopment if you don't have your zoning in place. So this was a preemptive step by the previous owner of the property to make it essentially that much closer to a shovel-ready property. When it comes to the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission, again, they are generally against single letter zone changes because in a single letter district, the boards, when they go to approve the zoning, do not necessarily get to see the same level of detail in the plans. In a planned district, you have a lot more flexibility to say what you want to see and not want to see. So in a single letter zone change, an applicant simply needs to meet the criteria. They don't have to present you with nearly as much, they have to present you with information, but there's not as much flexibility in what the boards can require of them, if that makes sense.
Sure. I was just, seeing what, yeah. And that property was purchased by Duke January 4th, 2017. My understanding is when you purchase property, you get what you get. They knew they were purchasing those 12-some acres, what the price was, and now we're adding another layer onto it that they're going to absorb our resource center and now going to buy the Fireside Motel.
And I think that's great. I'm glad to add that. And like everybody else here said, get that out of our... I don't think Duke wants to build a X number of $1 million building behind that hotel.
Okay. And you all have asked the residents in that area and the community surrounding that if they're on board with this as well?
I can assure you, I spent a lot of time talking to residents about everything, and I've never heard a lot of positive things coming from, shootings and drug deals, police reports, all that fun stuff, ever. It
So
just
you
doesn't.
asked the residents behind this new Duke Center?
Go knocking on doors, but
Okay.
I'm sure I've spoke to
Was
them.
there any of them that were at that December 3rd meeting in 2015?
I don't know. I'm a resident, not a board member.
Right. I mean, speaking as an elected representative of the people in this township, I'm fine with the project. Anybody I've talked to in the neighborhood about it is thrilled that it's coming.
Oh, so you did speak to people?
Just other businesses and just different people that I've had casual conversations with.
And then just one thing, I know the TIF is something off in the future for this property. However, I did a little research, and it seems that the 3 TIFs that the township have approved in the past few years, one being to Kroger's, and that is a $1.9 billion company and number 14 on a Fortune 500 list. Rumpke is a $496 million company and is the 10th largest waste and recycle company in North America. And now our township is interested in doing a TIF with another large corporation. Duke is a $22 billion company. Myself as a resident plan on spending the rest of my life here. I would like to encourage the board to perhaps pull back a little bit on this, read a little bit more about it, and from the lack of response that you have had to the residents asking questions this evening about your interpretation on this without referring to Mr. Mills, I think it would be in poor taste and decision if you did not table this until our regular scheduled meeting, July 10th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Acton.
How you doing, Jim?
Pretty good, Mr. Insco.
Excellent.
To inform you on in-town suites, visit the property owner next door just once, and he'll tell you what's going on there.
Which property owner, so I know where you're referencing?
The
Handy tool rental?
Oh, Handy Tool Rental, is that what you're referring to?
No,
I meant the
Automotive?
the
is on the
dental
other side?
office.
no, I'm talking about the rental place behind.
Handy Tool Rental.
In tool rental.
Yeah.
I didn't understand you.
Oh, that's okay.
Go down there during the day and you'll see the doors are propped open. Anybody can go in and out of that place if they want to. It's not as bad, as safe as you're saying it is.
They've been robbed before.
I'm not worried about them being robbed. I wish somebody put a match to it and go like that.
I can't comment
The
on
way it was
that.
built.
We don't advocate for that.
That's a separate.
Ex-fire chief can tell you all about it. The board that approved that thing back then didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start this meeting out stating, number one, that I agree with Stephanie and with Rich that the thing should be tabled till you understand what's going on. Have any of you trustees read and understand this agreement totally? I don't, but I got my views about reading parts of it that I think were a bunch of BS, be honest with you. This project this evening, and Jeff, I'll get with you later on what I was sent to you Friday about it. But that screen there, half the people probably in the township have no idea where the substation is at, where the fireside or fire red carpet motel is at, or what this property all covers. Why not put all this stuff up on the screen so we can see it at these meetings?
I guess that's a Waycross editing thing, if I had to guess. I don't know.
I don't think so, Jake.
But that's fine. It's not on the screen. I understand.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
can-
on the screen.
I think that's a-
Our meeting hall, we do what we want here. Waycross has nothing to do with it.
They have everything to do with editing, that's for sure. And I don't know if that's something they
Edit all
can
they want. They just put the camera up there and edit.
put a
the
camera to
thing.
the screen, you're saying?
Put one on the screen, yeah.
I don't think these meetings can be edited. They go out in their
Oh, gotcha.
format that they're in, so.
Good point.
That way, if everybody could see what's going on at
On the
this
TV.
meeting.
Maybe they can do a
They could
split
have-
screen or something along those lines.
When I get done, Jay,
What's
You
the
can
address
talk.
down there, 7500? What's the address of the property?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'd encourage anybody watching that wants to learn more about this to drive down Colerain Avenue from Galbraith down to Blue Rock, and the old Western Home Center Home Builders property is going to be developed by Duke, and the hotel and the old Grossbeck Tavern / Police Department substation are going to hopefully go away. And please come drive down every week for the next indefinitely, and you're going to see a lot of positive changes there.
7580 Colerain Avenue.
7580 Colerain Avenue is the site, so just to
Correct.
get that into the record.
but in this way, if the people behind me or these people at home could see what we're talking about, and there could be an open dialogue, and as you two gentlemen have willingly done tonight, you've been back and forth.
I think we're having a great meeting and picking up
I
some.
agree with you.
some
I agree
good points.
wholeheartedly. Why do we citizens have to pay to remove the motel valued at $528,230 and the police substation at $185,450? Duke has been told by Stephanie is a $1 billion company like Kroger and Rumpke, who were given 30 years tax break. And here we go again, giving Duke the same thing. Why?
I think they're
We're not
paying
giving
it.
Duke the same thing, that's for sure.
In
doesn't-
30 years.
Nobody's getting a tax break.
There's no tax break here.
There's no tax break here at all.
They're paying,
They're-
they're paying the value of what the.
That's not how TIFs work either. I mean, when there is a TIF, the company or property owner pays exactly the same as they would if the taxes, if there was no TIF. So there's no tax break even with a TIF.
I would request that the trustees vote on this resolution after the plans for which Duke's program supposedly has been given to us about the building design, landscaping design, entrance and exit routes out of this property, the type of frontage design that will be placed along Colerain Avenue. What are the plans to protect the creek that runs behind here? I don't know how many of you know, but there's a creek that runs behind there that floods
And I'm sure in the
quite
engineer-
often. And it also goes all the way down behind Clippers property, and also the new rest home, or senior citizens home is going to be a. How are these people going to be protected?
I'm sure that'll be in the engineered design.
What about the oil that comes out of the trucks? How about the
Generally
gas
nowadays, catch
that comes
basins
out of
have
the
a trap in them to catch
How about
any.
the highlights that'll be parked on their parking lot to protect them from it? Residents back there are going to
At some
all
point,
have to be
when
stuck
when
with
they
it.
submit their final plan, that it's
And
got to go through
that's
zoning.
That's what I'm asking. I'm just,
Yeah, I guess there's the zoning board eventually.
Given that the property is now zoned as single letter, at least the 7600 property, the Fireside and CRC are obviously not yet part of what we're discussing zoning-wise. There are specific regulations within the zoning resolution that state exactly how much lighting can cross boundary lines between. So lighting, landscaping, all of the buffering, all of that is dictated in the zoning. So if Duke were to come in and meet all of those criteria, this would not need to go in front of
Right.
any of the BZA.
So the criteria has already been voted on and decided.
The criteria has already been decided. It is determined by the zoning resolution at this point. So if they meet that, they do not need to go. If they want a variance from that, they will have to then be in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So they'll be in compliance if they submit compliant plans.
Correct.
all I'm doing is suggesting, look at this deeper. Rich said he looked up some different places on the website. Have any of you been over in Green Township to see their Duke's parking lot behind Walgreens?
Behind Chinatown and Van Lunen's and Walgreens and all
Van
the businesses that have ever been there.
Van Lunen's.
Van Lunen's been gone for
I know, but I've been around a long time, and I know
Well,
I
me
know
too.
everything
I
that's
know
been there.
Van Lunen's, I shopped there.
He's got a beautiful cave right here in
And,
Colerain.
and I will tell you that in the past, Cincinnati Gas and Electric and Synergy and Duke have chosen not to locate a major facility like this in Colerain Township. They've chosen other places for whatever incentive or reason or available land was out there 150, 30, 10 years ago.
What's it, Simpson Avenue in North Collegeville?
They're
What we used to
pretty
call
old,
steel sub years ago.
pretty old facilities around, and I'm confident they're going to build a nice 2020 facility when this thing gets built. I mean, it's going to be very state of the art.
You know. We don't know anything that's going on down there yet. So how can you
You
say,
have to put the package together
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
And if the board votes to not move forward, then the parcel's going to change and the plan will change. But I think we're having a great animated discussion about it this evening, and everybody's brought up good points, and I really do appreciate that, so.
well, my closing comments are this. I ask that you do not vote to approve on something that's still up in the air. This agreement will not bring new permanent residents and jobs to Colerain Township. The 150 jobs that you're talking about, these people will be coming from Green Township, Mount Healthy, Cincinnati, Ross, wherever.
Maybe some of those people will want to live closer to work and decide to move here. And some of them may already live here. I mean, odds are.
And I think the day they open, you're going to have employees from a lot of other communities, but I would think some younger person getting out of college or getting out of a trade school that wants to go to work as an electrician or a manager or whatever they do, I would think they're going to think, wow, I work at Duke on Colerain Avenue, I'm going to buy a nice house over off Blue Rock Road or something. So I would think over a period of time, it's going to help bring people to our community. And it's a very long-term thing.
150 jobs are coming to Colerain Township.
Good job.
That's 150 more than are on that site right now, so.
Yeah.
Correct. But those 150 people, most of them, and I say 90% of them, do not live in Colerain Township.
I don't have
don't
that
know.
Who
statistic.
knows? Who knows?
So,
They live outside the area, in my opinion, of Colerain. True, they may stop, get a cup of coffee coming in or a cup of coffee going out of Colerain. But there's not going to be any taxes coming from them to support Colerain Township. Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Look before you leap.
Kathy Moore? Hi, Kathy.
How you doing?
Yeah, a couple of questions about the agreement the loan agreement. And one thing I wanted to say, Stephanie brought it up, but I'm not sure you understood, that the second meeting of the month was supposed to be just for nuisance abatements, and so it's like, why, there's no urgency here, there's no deadline, why are we doing this at a nuisance abatement meeting? It could have waited till July. We had at a nuisance abatement meeting, you hired Mr. Mills, and that should have waited till the next meeting.
I, for one, just because our Tuesday meeting or our regular meetings are so long, I will put as much stuff on these special meetings as we can to help alleviate how long
And we can
those
change
meetings are.
when the
Well,
board
and,
meets.
I mean, but you had said before, the second meeting is for nuisance abatements. So if you're going to change it and make it anything, then just
And maybe we
need to
should
make
discuss
that
that at
clear
our
to
next
everybody.
meeting to make the
Fair.
rest of the meetings this year, because with all the development and that you've got going on, we probably do need to expand to a second.
And I
Meeting
think
of the
that's a
month.
good idea.
Okay, that's fair.
If the board did not approve this loan to the CIC, would that hinder this Duke project at all? Would they say, oh, we're not going to do it, or?
I would think it might slow down the getting rid of those two, the hotel and the Rosebeck Tavern.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about this is that we're eliminating a blighted property that generates hundreds of police runs and EMS runs and to the benefit of the neighborhood, and so that's why it's taken so long. That's why because they could build on just the Builders First Source site.
And couldn't they also, I mean, if we said, well, you know, yeah, the Fireside Motel is not going to look really good next to your nice big building, and so if you want it demolished, you have to pay for it. I mean, do you think they'd say, oh, well, we're just going to back out of the whole thing then? I mean, I don't see why we should have to pay to do this. If they wanted that property, then, and they do have the money.
They
and
didn't need the point I'm trying to make is more is that they didn't need that property, and the township is in an effort to beautify and enhance Groesbeck is asked them to do that, and they said, why would we spend more money when we've got a site that we can? And I said, because it's for the benefit of the community, and Duke is an incredible community partner, and they came and stepped forward and put up $400,000 that they didn't have to, and in an effort to make the community a better place, and that's great.
And
Very
I'm
much
all for
appreciate that.
But I don't think the taxpayers should have to pay for it. When you say this is going to bring 150 jobs to the township, it's not really. I mean, we're not going to have 150 Duke trucks in Colerain. They're going to come here, get their truck, and they're going to go somewhere else. So it's not like they are working here. They're going to be parking here and getting their equipment, and then they're going to go to another community. A couple of meetings ago, Chief Denny had remarked, you know, what a big asset or how much we depend on the substation, how important it is, and for what they use it for. And so in the negotiation of all of this, was Chief Denny not aware that this building could be torn down, or was he under the impression that this building was going to be here forever and this is what it's going to be used
hopefully
for?
a lot of the business that Chief Denny's had to attend to in that neighborhood will change. The climate will change because we're having working people there, and it's a, you know, business development's going to bring a better climate down there, and hopefully, you know, with less runs to the place next door, the hotel and other things, hopefully we won't need a substation there, and we might, if we do, we might
don't
find
even
another
use it.
place to
We
put
don't use
it.
it right now.
As far, you know, I wanted to make a comment about if we're rushing this or if this is just something we need to keep things moving along. There is such a thing as a construction season, and I don't know exactly when Duke intends to break ground, except it's going to be after we get this part of the business done. And if we push this off till July or August or whenever, and all of a sudden they're ready to go and it's December 10th and they're going to go, it's too cold, we're not going to break ground till April. You know, you don't want to keep, there's a construction season and you don't want to try to be starting a project
So
and.
it is an urgency on your part.
The
then.
just-
longer you put something off, the more things that can happen. You know, what I mean, look at Hughes Road when that was being abandoned. My gosh, that there
And
was.
if you put things off, you might be aware of some other things
That's
also.
true, too. That's fair.
And Mr. Mills, you said you've been involved in this for 20 or 21 months in the negotiation of this. So Duke bought the property in January of 17, and so you were negotiating on this property prior to that? I mean, okay, so did you approach Duke with this, or did Duke come to you and say, we're looking at property? How?
That was something that the ball started rolling before I got here in October of 16, but it was the first project that I worked on in October of 16.
Okay, so
It was
you were
already
you were
in
working
motion.
on the property, a plan for the property, or you had an idea, and then Duke.
The Duke had an interest in the property before, obviously, you know, Duke had an interest before they closed on the property, right? Or else you have to think about your project before you buy the land, right? And so those are the discussions that we were having in October of 16 was, you know, what's a great use for this project? You know, we want to bring 150 jobs, you know, and I was just dazzled. I was so excited to add this shot of life into Groesbeck. It's a really exciting project.
Okay, and I know with TIFs, I know you're not voting on that tonight, but you're hoping to in the future to do that. And has this been or has the school board been made aware of that you're possibly going to have another TIF?
Yes,
They are, and they're okay with it.
we're having
They've,
conversations.
they've been invited to the table on everything that the new board has done. That since January 1st, and that's something I used to be on that board, and there used to not be the level of communication that there is now, and some of it we agree on, and some of it we don't, but
the
they are
dialogue's still
aware.
there,
The
yeah.
dialogue is very alive and well, and that said, Jeff has stuff going on right now that's probably going to come up 21 months from now. You know, as it comes along and ferments and grows, there's going to be a point. This isn't the only ball he's got rolling. He's got a lot of stuff going, and some of it we can talk about, and some of it we can't. And if we would talk about it, that would, you know,
But the school board was made aware
of
that
this
this is a
this
possible.
this project going on at Duke. Yes,
Positively.
But the police chief wasn't aware that they were going to tear down the
Yes, he was.
substation.
he was.
Oh, he was.
Yes, and I think the point that Chief was trying to make was that we operate phenomenal programs out of there, like nationally
Right.
recognized programs out of there. And so I think what he's talking about, less the building, more the programs.
Program,
And those
yeah.
programs aren't going to be affected. We're going to absolutely have
Find
places
home.
for the Colerain Family Justice Center. It's an amazing program that our police department runs. The QRT will certainly have space to do their thing, a nationally recognized heroin addiction program, and the Ohio Highway Patrol will have a place in Colerain Township always. And so we're able to find progress. Sometimes there's things that move around, but we're going to keep on keeping on.
Okay. And the only other thing I want to say is with the CIC, I've always felt there's something shady with it from the very beginning. I don't understand why we have to give our tax dollars to another organization for them to disperse. It just kind of seems like it muddies up the paper trail. And I don't see why, I mean, from what I can remember, you were not allowed to spend township dollars on private property. Is that true? Like if somebody had a creek in their backyard and it backed up, and we could not go in there and do any maintenance to that because you can't use tax dollars on private property.
If it's a township-owned easement, I'm sorry, if it's a township-owned easement and there was that situation you described, I guess our maintenance department could go clean it out, and that's kind of using money to fix something. It's
Well,
using
okay.
our labor and
I didn't
materials.
say it wasn't a township easement. You can't do it.
I'm
So
not-
I'm just saying that I just don't think we should be giving our tax dollars to another organization to spend as they please. I think we need to keep our township dollars here where we can keep an eye on them and we know what we're spending our money on. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is the folks that have filled out a request to speak. So I'd like to move on to the new business portion of the meeting, Mr. Mills.
Very good. The first item on the agenda this evening is a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement.
There's a second opportunity to speak, and after the new business portion of the meeting, and we welcome to have you speak. We're going to get through our nuisance abatements, and there is another opportunity on the agenda to speak.
That's okay. That's okay.
Is it got to do with this with the?
Yes, it does.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah,
Please come up. Is there just one of you that's going to speak, or? Okay.
Thank you.
And just for everybody else, I have their name so that Heather can get your name correctly. Could you spell it, please?
My name is David Craig, David Craig. I was standing here listening to you guys saying that, the cops have been there hundreds of times. I would like to see reports of them being there hundreds of times because I live there on the property, and 90% of the time we try and take care of the problem ourselves before we have to call Colerain Township. You can't judge a book by its cover, and you can't discriminate and turn people away at the hotel. People slide through the cracks. I'm sorry that there's a lot of bad that goes on in the area. Everybody knows that. But I don't feel that it's right that just because Duke bought that property and they're making it, what they bought it to buy that, and now they're trying to force us out is the way that I feel. Obviously they got plans because they done got the police station or whatever, or however you guys are doing it. That's the way that I feel that, once they bought that property, now they're trying to get their hands on our property. I don't think.
I'm the lady that, I'm buying.
Can you speak into the mic for us, please?
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name's Sandra White. I'm the lady that's purchased the motel from me, John. I've been paying on the hotel for 9 years. And, I see more ambulances and cops going to in-town suites. I even see them a lot down at Red Carpet. I don't know how my hotel could be picked out on. I feel like I'm being picked on. I feel like, they're saying there's a lot of cops and ambulances there. They're not. I got people that live there, people that's got homes there, ain't got nowhere to go. But Colerain Township, when they would have someone drunk in their car, or they would have a woman that's been beat up and homeless, I've helped. Colerain Township has brought people to the hotel. I've gave rooms up for people that was drunk or a woman that's been abused. I've helped Colerain Township, and now they're taking the hotel away from me.
Are you the owner of the hotel?
I'm buying it on land contract. I've been paying on it for 9 years. In November, it'll be 9 years.
So what is your scheduled payoff date on it?
About another 7 years.
And does the owner want to sell it, or whatever
Yes.
deal you have with the owner is?
The owner, there's a different, Ms. White and her family operate the facility. Ms. Jean, I guess is her name,
Yes.
owns the facility. And so the contract is with the owner of the facility, Ms. John, not with the operator.
I pay her payments every month. I've been doing this. I worked there 7 years as the housekeeper in the front desk. And then the people that I was working for just up and left, which was Connie and Raphael's song. And Miss John showed up on the, come there. She had it about 9 months, and she asked me would I be interested in taking it. So I took it. I had it 3 months. My husband passed away. So me, my son, and my 2 daughters that I have, we've all been trying to work there, make the hotel work. But I just can't understand why Duke wants my property. I'm a small business. Ain't that what it's supposed to be there on Colerain Avenue? Small businesses.
Does your business arrangement with this, the other person,
John.
does your business contract with her preclude her from selling the property out? Do you feel like she's selling it out from under you, or?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because I sort of feel like that she's done signed papers with somebody, but I don't know who.
But that, not me.
Well, this is not a case of eminent domain. So you've got a ready, willing, and able seller, and you've got a ready, willing, and able buyer. And I would get with her to find out if you've got any kind of a case with her, because this is Colerain and Duke aren't taking your property. That's for sure. Your current whoever you have the land contract with, though, that's who, if I'm you, I would go to and say, hey, what are you doing? That's me personally, but I appreciate you helping out with it.
Do you all know if she went behind my back maybe and did this? I can't see her doing it without my signature.
You should talk to her about what her plans are to sell her property. But I would point out that Colerain Township is currently litigating against Ms. White for non-payment of taxes. So I wanted you guys to know that.
Fair enough.
I just went downtown on the 20th and paid $11,000 for taxes.
Sure. There's years and years and years of back taxes. I just didn't want this to seem some way that it isn't. I mean, we are currently adverse parties in litigation, so I wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay. The way that I feel is like you guys are trying to come up with every reason you can to take this property from us because Duke has it in their mind without that property they can't make what they need to make. The place don't look like a $1 million hotel. It's not the Hilton and this and that, but it's a place you can come. It's clean. There's no bugs. If we see a problem, we do try and take care of it. We don't just turn the other way and look away. In the past 8 years, when we first took the place over, yes, that place it needed to be tore down, but we put a lot of our heart and soul and time into making it, it's not all the way there. Yes, it still needs plenty of work. But it's sort of, it's in the process, you can only do so much. I just don't think that it's right, that they bought that property and now just because whatever their plans are now that they got to come in and pretty much take it from us. Pretty much that's the way that I feel that you guys are.
I'm not familiar with your business relationship with the owner.
You guys have made it up in your guys' heads that you guys are ready to move forward. So pretty much that's what it's going to be. I was just wanted to speak my mind to where.
Sure, I appreciate that additional information. I don't know what your business contract is with the lady who owns it.
But I just wanted to speak my mind where everybody.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thanks for going the extra mile for helping people out, like you said. I appreciate that.
Well, I just felt like it needed to be known because
we don't always hear all the good stories, unfortunately.
You don't. But like Colerain Township, the police department, and if they was here, a few of them could tell you, I've took people and put them in a room, not charged them.
Appreciate that.
I've took battered women with children. I mean, I thought God blessed me with that hotel to help people. And that's the way I feel about the hotel. I love the hotel. Nobody never cared about it but me. Now I'm losing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I went ahead. Did you get the names on that, Howard?
I did.
Okay. Thank you for speaking. I didn't have any other people fill out a card, so we'll go ahead and proceed with the new business.
Okay. The first item on the agenda is a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement of the properties listed in the resolution. This is our bi-monthly list, and recommendations for approval.
A motion that we approve the list.
Second the motion.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Not for mine.
And myself neither. Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal is absent, and Mr. Unger.
Aye.
Wonderful. Here's the resolution.
Motion carries. Next item, Jeff.
Very good. So, we've spent a lot of time discussing this tonight, but the next three resolutions are related to the Duke Energy Economic Development project, and I got to tell you, this is just it's a grand slam of a project. It brings 150 good paying jobs. It brings over $10 million worth of investment to a site that has sat vacant for over a decade in the heart of Groesbeck. I believe that this is the catalytic project that changes the trajectory of Groesbeck, and I believe that for a number of reasons. It pumps 150 individuals into the neighborhood every day. We talked about the spin-off business effect. We talked about cleaning up blight and removing nuisance. And on top of all of that, it's a positive revenue enhancing project for the township and the school district. I cannot see a downside to this project, and I'm really proud to share it with you. The gist of it, though we've already talked about it a lot tonight, is that the township at the end would spend $130,000 net to eliminate blight, bring jobs and investment to a neighborhood that needs it, and the township would receive approximately $3.2 million over the next 30 years, with a return on investment of between 8 and 14 months. Those are great numbers, and it also is a project that will generate $3.5 to $4.3 million in revenue to the school district over the next 30 years, depending on the TIF negotiations that are ongoing. So the way that this project works, and it's all laid out in the agenda packet for everyone to read, but the Tri-State Improvement Company is a wholly owned subsidiary of Duke. They're going to execute a contract with Fireside Hospitality, who we just learned is owned by Mi Jean. And they are going to execute that contract. They'll assign that contract to the CIC. What's being asked of the board this evening is to loan the CIC $530,000, B, to transfer the Community Resource Center to the CIC, and C, to execute a purchase, sale, and demolition agreement. So in the end, the Community Improvement Corporation of Colerain Township, which is it's a economic development unit that we use to do economic development. So it's not seedy or shady or different from the township. In fact, the three trustees are the members of that organization, and Ms. Wright and Ms. Randolph and LeCount and myself, we are the trustees of that organization. So the business is all conducted in public. You'll all be here for it in just about 15 minutes. And so the CIC will own the Community Resource Center. The contract for purchase of the Fireside Motel will be assigned to the CIC. The CIC will use the loan, the $530,000, to do two things. One, purchase the Fireside Motel for $430,000 from the owner, and two, demolish both the Fireside and the Community Resource Center. And then the CIC will sell both of those parcels, now ready for development, to Duke for $400,000. So the math there is 530 minus 430 for the purchase, minus 100,000 for the demolition, and then there's a revenue of $400,000 from the sale of Duke. So the net is $130,000 out of pocket for the township to execute all of this.
So 30 into the property and 100 for the demolition.
That's correct.
Estimated 100 for the demolition.
Yep, you got it. So that is the way that the deal is structured, and so with that, if there are no further questions from the trustees, I would recommend the approval of a loan agreement to the Community Improvement Corporation for $530,000. This is a loan from the trustees to the CIC so that they can execute those things.
Gotcha. I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it. It's been motioned and seconded. Do you have any discussion, Greg?
Not at this time.
And I do not either. Mrs. Harlow, if you'd please call for a vote.
Sure. So the board is aware this is resolution approving loan agreement to Colerain Township, Hamilton County Community Improvement Corporation. So, Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal is absent, and Mr. Unger.
Aye.
There's the resolution for your signature.
Thank you.
Very good. The next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the administrator to execute all documents required to transfer the Community Resource Center from the Township trustee ownership to the Community Improvement Corporation ownership. And the recommendation is for approval.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Not from I.
And none from I. Mrs. Harlow, if you please call for a vote.
All right. Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal is absent, and Mr. Unger.
Aye. Motion carries.
Very good. And the final item this evening is a resolution authorizing the administrator to execute a purchase, sale, and demolition agreement. This purchase, sale, and demolition agreement is by and between the trustees, the CIC, and Duke Energy, and it lays out the terms of the purchase, sale, and demolition of the Fireside Motel. Recommendations for approval.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion, Greg?
Negative.
None from I. Mrs. Harlow, if you please call for a vote.
Actually, let me read the resolution, its complete title. Resolution authorizing administrator to execute a purchase and sale and demolition agreement with the Colerain Township, Hamilton County, CIC, Inc., and Duke Energy, Ohio. So there's the resolution. Mr. Insco?
I'm satisfied with all the discussion I've heard today. Aye.
And Mr. Rajagopal is absent. Mr. Unger?
Aye. The motion carries.
Thank you, Board. That's all the business we had. Following this meeting, there will be a CIC meeting where 3 items are on their agenda that are corollaries to the 3 items that we just talked about for the Duke project.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next item is citizens' address, if anybody had any new business.
Just to carry on, I'll give you these questions. I know you're going to work on them. I think that given your expectations that this is going to set the tone for development on Colerain Avenue, I think, as Mr. LeCount said, B3 spells out the minimum requirements. If I'm prior to about minimum requirements, so you guys have the authority, okay, to talk with them about those things that you might think are needed, okay, to bring this thing to the level of excellence that you are wanting to establish the right tone in that neighborhood. So I know you got work to do, but I would encourage you to do that. You know, you have the authority to talk with these guys to negotiate whatever you guys think is needed. And I'm not sure that B3 minimum requirements will live up to the expectations that you have.
Thank you, Rich. Was there any other? Go ahead, Jim, and then you can be next, Mike.
The property that runs behind the repair gas station that used to be years ago, where the sawmills were for Western Home, is that property included in this negotiations?
I don't know which property you're talking about, Jim. I'm sorry.
At the back, along the creek, when Western Homes was there,
Yep.
they had sawmills back there where they would cut lumber the length and
If
size
it's
that
part
you
of the
want.
Western Home Center site, then ultimately,
This sits behind the gas station repair shop there. Is that also included in all this dealing?
I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar with that site. So I'd have to look at Cagis and try to understand where exactly you're talking about. But the site does, if you look at Cagis online, you can see the parcel boundaries. And I was trying to see if their parcel boundaries were included in the materials here for the broader Duke site.
But if it's part of the Duke, if it's part of the old Western Home Center Builder's Source property, then it's included.
Oh, then we have about 100 yards to 150 yards of a creek that runs back there, and that's one of my concerns about pollution from all these trailers, telephone poles, transformers, and all that parking in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Was there any other, Mr. Parsons?
Well, I would like to voice my displeasure with the proceedings here this evening. I mean, you either knew that there was contested ownership on this real estate, which it sounded like you did. And however, if you didn't, and this woman's plea here was totally out of the blue, then that surely would have warranted tabling.
I knew there
this
was
issue.
some. I knew there was some issues there.
Well, then it should have been tabled till we could have heard input from the police chief, and we could have had Mr. Raj Kapol listen to this, all of this, and we could have had a full board input, because the thing smelled of shenanigans from the get-go, and it stinks even worse as I'm going out the door. When you sit here and so callous talk about dealing with the owner, and here's this poor woman here that's paid 9 years thinking that she's going to come into a hotel that only has 7 more years on it, and you disregard that? And you consider yourself representing the public to hurry up some deal? Somebody in here is making some money somewhere.
I asked her, Mike. I asked her if she had that in her business contract.
Well, come on, it's the fireside down there. I mean, there's
She hasn't
a
been
verbal
paying-
contract, and the history of the payola should speak for itself.
She hasn't been paying money for 9 years without having some type of written agreement with the owner.
Well, I don't know. The payola and the cash check should be valid for something.
No payola here.
I'm talking about she paid for
Yeah,
her
I
hotel.
get what you're saying.
No, this is bad form, very bad form. I expected more, I really did. And the ownership, there's something was funny with the ownership, and I'll bet you if we probed into it, how many owners have there been on that Western property since Western folded? Are there a couple shadow companies that have come in and gone out on that, and now we don't know who truly owns it?
Yeah, I just don't accept the premise that shady things are happening, because I know for a fact that nothing shady is happening.
Hey, I'm sorry, I have no more to say.
In America, people own things, property, right? And so when you own
If you're
something,
aware of it, make the public aware.
all I'm saying is that we have negotiated with the owner, not we, but the Tri-State Improvement Company has negotiated with the owner of the property.
I heard talk that we've leveraged them up $400,000, so somebody's getting greased real good here, because I know how you talked, how you've worked Duke up to the $400,000 mark, and now it's coming clear that you're shutting this woman right out of the picture that's paid the better part of a decade for a piece of real estate. You all ought to be ashamed of yourselves.
She was
thank you,
being
Mike.
shut out of the property by her landlord, essentially. I mean, that's not.
I'm surprised, she did.
She certainly got some beef with the owner of the property, but it's not us. It's not us. I mean,
Everybody railroaded it down the pike. Come on, thank you all.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Was there any other? Come on back up, Keith.
You're good. You're good.
The CIC is basically the same thing as 3CDC downtown Cincinnati, right? And that's nothing but a way to break the rules made to protect us. That's all that's going on here with the CIC. Same damn thing. I'm tired of the rules being broke that's made to protect me. Because that's what's going on.
Thank you. Did anyone else have any comments? Hearing none.
We've got one here.
I'm sorry. Please approach the microphone.
Do we need a name for the record for citizens address, or for the second citizens address?
Jennifer Connon.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I'm a resident. I'm an employee, and I'm an employer in Colerain Township. And I have to commend each of you for your leadership, because it's tough.
Not
when
easy
you have
to
talk.
upset people, that's for sure.
Correct. And it's hard when you have the heartstrings pulled. And I think we all have empathy for the situation of the lady that works hard there. I applaud any change that comes to that site. I have seen for so long, for 20 years that I've worked here and lived here, of all the changes that have come and gone, and it's about time that we develop and bring Duke to Colerain Township. I can speak as an employer, have 140 lives, and that's 140 families that live in Colerain Township or work in Colerain Township. And I'm impressed with how they choose to give back to the community. Our employees choose to give back to the community. And I have no doubt that Duke will be a good corporate citizen of Colerain Township. So, in that said, I know that myself and several other businesses in the area of Groesbeck support this. With that said, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Was there any other final comments? Hearing none, the next item is executive session. I don't think we need one, so the next item is a motion for adjournment. Would you?
Yeah, I'll gladly make the motion.
And I'll second. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Not for mine.
Heather, please call for a vote.
Mr. Inscombe?
Welcome back, Jenna. Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal is absent, and Mr. Unger.
Aye. This part of this meeting is adjourned.
Yes.